Hello, dear students. Today I am going to start a very important chapter from class 11th chemistry, that is chemical bonding and molecular structure. In this chapter, we will be discussing so many aspects of these bonds. How are the bonds formed? What are the different type of bonds which are formed? What is the nature of the bond in the sense whether it is having some charge separation polarity or not? So let's get started. Let me assure you, it's a very interesting chapter and it is going to make your foundation chemistry very strong. So let's start. Now, there are a few questions to start with that should come to our mind whenever we discuss or think about these compounds, the chemicals which we see in everyday life, that why do atoms combine first of all to give rise to these chemicals, and why are only certain combinations possible? Let me give you an example here. Certain combinations, like you will find hydrogen getting bonded to oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, so many different atoms. But there are few atoms with which hydrogen or maybe any other atom for that matter does not combine. Next is, why do some atoms combine while certain others do not? Some atoms, they are found in their native state. Native state, that means in the elemental form. But others like hydrogen, carbon, they are found in their combined form. So why helium, neon, or some metals which are called noble metals like gold, silver, platinum, they do not combine? And the last is, why do molecules possess definite shapes? That how can we say that something is having a linear shape and some other molecule is having tetrahedral geometry and shape, or maybe trigonal? So we will get answers to all these questions in this chapter. As we all know that the attractive forces which hold various constituents may be atoms or they may be ions depending upon what type of bond is formed. We all know that there are two types of bonds basically, covalent and ionic bond. So if it is a covalent bond, I will say atoms are getting bonded, and if there is ionic bond, I will say ions are getting bonded. So what is a chemical bond? If we have to define, it's the attractive force which holds various constituents together in different chemical species. That is called a chemical bond. And the chemical bond formation takes place as a result of combination of atoms of various elements. That's why we are going to find answers to these questions now. Lewis, as he explained the atoms, he said that there is a particular entity in every atom that is a positively charged kernel. He referred to this as the nucleus, and only the inner electrons which are moving in their specific shell. This is a kernel according to him. And the outer shell that could accommodate a maximum of 8 electrons. So this was his idea, that this is how the atom should be. And he assumed that these 8 electrons are in the outer shell, they are occupying the corners of a cube. So if you have a cube, or you just have a look at the corners of the room in which you are sitting, imagine that to be a cube. If it is not a perfect cube, still you can imagine. And when you imagine that, you can see that this cube which I am drawing here, by the time you had a look all over the room in the corners, there are 8 corners. Okay, so he said that these 8 corners are occupied by the outer electrons. 1, 2. If you see the ceiling of your room, you will find these 4 corners. Then you see the floor, and you will find these 4 corners on the floor. I mean the uh, cube, if you imagine that way. So 4 in the upper portion and these 4 corners in the lower portion. This if you join them, you will find that it is making a cube. So he said that you imagine this as the positive charge is here along with the inner electrons, that is the kernel, and the 8 corners of the cube which surround this kernel, they are being occupied by the 8 electrons, which we say give extra stability to the configuration, hence the atom. Thus, the single outer shell electron of sodium would occupy one corner of the cube, because every atom, here's one example actually, the sodium, because every atom is not going to have 8 electrons in the outermost shell, right? So if you take the example of sodium, the kernel must include the nucleus plus inner electrons and the single outer shell electron, because the configuration of sodium is 2, 8, 1, because the atomic number is 11. So according to him, one outer electron will be placed in any one of these 8 corners and the remaining 7 corners will be empty. But in case of noble gases, since you know that noble gases have 8 valence electrons, then he said that all the 8 corners would be occupied if you consider a noble gas, obviously except helium. Those noble gases which have 8 outer electrons, they will occupy the corners. This was his idea of atom. And then Kossel-Lewis, they together worked on making the Lewis dot structures, which we now know very well. So they were able to give a satisfactory explanation about formation of bonds. This was a very positive point about them. And Lewis postulated that atoms achieve the stable octet when they are linked by chemical bonds. And stable octet, we say noble gas configuration. Okay, so that is why the bond formation is taking place, because everything wants to attain stability. Now in case of sodium and chlorine, what happens? The transfer of electrons is happening. Sodium is losing one electron and chlorine is taking that one electron. As a result, we get positive and negative charges. So such type of transfer of electron gives rise to a bond which is called ionic bond or electrostatic force of attraction which is there. So they are also called electrovalent bonds. And in case of other molecules like Cl2, H2, F2, what is different from NaCl? They have exactly same atom, even if they have atoms like H and Cl, which do not have a lot of difference in their electron negativity. So here the sharing of electrons will take place. Sharing of electrons. Whenever there is sharing of electrons, it gives rise to covalent. Now, one thing is confirmed, whether it is sharing or transfer of electrons, the octet has to be completed. The stable configuration should be achieved. That's why the chemical bond formation is taking place, and this was very well explained by Kossel-Lewis approach. Now, here are a few Lewis dot symbols. Very easy to draw. So lithium, you just have to see how many valence electrons are there. Lithium has only one outer electron, so lithium with a single dot. Beryllium has 2 valence electrons, boron has 3, carbon has 4, nitrogen has 5, oxygen has 6, chlorine has 7, and neon has 8. So these are termed as Lewis symbols because we are just showing a single atom and its electrons, valence electrons only. Then Kossel specifically, he drew attention to the following facts: that in a periodic table, the highly electronegative halogens, if you see the examples on the right hand side in the box, the highly electronegative halogens like chlorine is taken up here, and the highly electropositive alkali metals, sodium is taken up here as an example, they are separated by noble gases. How is that possible? If you see the periodic table, you will see that you start from alkali metals and the table, when you move from left to right, it ends at halogens. So this is what he said, that after halogens, there is a noble gas. And after the noble gas, when you move to the next period, then comes the alkali metals. This was the idea, which is perfect. And the formation of negative ion from a halogen atom and positive ion from alkali metal. Negative ion from halogen is here by taking this electron, which is lost by sodium. So loss of electron by alkali metal to make positive ion, and gain of electron by halogen to make halide. That is basically associated with this loss in gain of electron. We already know about it, that electrovalent bonds are formed like this only, that electrons are transferred from one atom to another atom, and we get negative and positive charges which have electrostatic force attraction between them because of opposite charges, and they give rise to the lattice. Similarly, formation of calcium fluoride is also explained. Calcium, which comes in alkaline earth metals category. So when that is reacting with fluorine, it has valency 2, it will lose 2 electrons. Similarly, it's going to produce calcium fluoride, CaF2, where one calcium ion with 2 positive charges is getting bonded to 2 fluoride ions, where each fluoride is having a single negative charge. And this way of writing the configuration, you already know about it. You have done it in the earlier chapters, that if I have to write the configuration of, say, chlorine atom, which has 17 electrons, atomic number is 17. So 10 electrons, instead of writing 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, you can simply write the neon, which is a noble gas, in the square bracket, because neon has 10 electrons and remaining 7 electrons can be shown like this. So this is another way of writing the configuration. Same way for fluoride, fluoride ion F minus, helium 2s2 and 2p6. Now this 2s2 and 2p6, and if I write 1s2 here, it becomes total 10 electrons, which is again the noble gas configuration, and that is for neon. So in place of F minus, we can write this also, just for the configuration. Okay. And then after this explanation, the negative and positive ions which are thus formed, like Na plus and Cl minus, calcium, Ca2 plus and F minus, which are formed, they have stable noble gas configuration. That is why the formation of bonds is taking place. As we keep on telling you every time, we keep on discussing it, that everything wants to attain stability. That's why all this is happening. So the noble gases, with the exception of helium. Why exception? Because in helium, there are only 2 electrons. The configuration is stable, 1s2, which has a duplet. 1s2, duplet means 2 electrons, and they have a particularly stable outer shell configuration of 8 electrons. Ns2, Np6 is the general configuration. So he basically drew attention to these facts before explaining the formation of bonds. And the negative and positive ions, they are stabilized by electrostatic attraction. Wherever you have a positive charge and a negative charge, like we just discussed Na plus and Cl minus as an example. So wherever you have opposite charges, there has to be what kind of attraction? Electrostatic force of attraction. And these bonds which are formed here, they are also called electrovalent bonds. Ionic bond is also called electrovalent bond. And when the bond is formed by sharing of electrons, we call it covalent bond, right? Now here is octet rule. Octa, the term octet, octa is related to number 8. So octet rule says that in order to attain stability, every atom combines if the octet is not complete. And according to Kossel and Lewis, they developed an important theory of chemical combination between atoms known as electronic theory of chemical bonding. So according to this, atoms can combine either by transfer of valence electrons, as you saw in the case of sodium and chlorine, that sodium was transferring its 1 electron to chlorine to make it chloride, and itself getting converted to Na plus ion, and then they were making the bond. So this is by transfer of electrons from one atom to another, or by sharing of electrons. The other option is, if transfer is not possible, then sharing of electrons can be possible because both the atoms which are getting bonded, both are in the need of electron. None of them is ready to donate electron, so they will be sharing electrons. That is called basically a covalent bond. The bond formed by transfer of electrons is electrovalent or ionic bond, and the bond formed by sharing of electrons is covalent bond. So this is done in order to have an octet in their valence shells. That is octet rule, because it is said that if octet is complete, it gives extra stability, as it's prevalent in the case of noble gases. Let us understand the covalent bonding in more detail. Langmuir, he refined the Lewis postulates, and he said that the idea of stationary cubical arrangement, the cube, because the Lewis, he said that in the Lewis explanation, he said that stationary cubical arrangement is there, and each corner of the cube is occupied by one electron, which is the outermost electron. So the next explanation which came by Langmuir, he said that idea of stationary cubical arrangement is wrong, and he introduced the term covalent bonding. The Lewis-Langmuir theory, that can be understood by, because they worked in coordination then, by considering the formation of chlorine molecule. So here is the simple explanation. Chlorine atom with 7 valence electrons, another chlorine atom with 7 valence electrons. Now the problem is both the chlorine atoms, they want 1 electron each. None of them is ready to donate electron. So what is the only way out? They will share 1 electron each, and this way the octet of each one is complete. I will simply suggest you here that instead of showing, it's not wrong, but just to make it clear, when you calculate formal charge, it might confuse you. So instead of drawing the 2 electrons like this, you draw them horizontally like this. One here and one here, exactly in the middle of the 2 atoms, because they are sharing it. So none of them is having more power to attract the shared pair. So it will be exactly in the middle. And as I explained earlier also, that such bonds are called covalent bonds. And there is another aspect to it. They are called non-polar covalent bonds. Why? Because there is no polarity. There is no negative and positive charge, because the electron pair which is being shared will be exactly in the middle of the 2 atoms which are sharing them. Now, let us see more examples. As you saw in the case of Cl2 in the previous slide, these dots, they represent electrons, and the structures which we are making now, they are called Lewis dot structures. Very important and interesting structures to make. So, if we have to make the structure of water molecule, H2O, oxygen, oxygen is having 6 valence electrons, and each hydrogen is having 1 valence electron. Only 1 electron hydrogen has. So if they share it this way, that oxygen is sharing 1 electron with hydrogen and hydrogen is sharing its 1 electron with oxygen, and same way this side. Now you can see that the octet of oxygen is complete this way, and the duplet of each hydrogen is complete, so it is giving it stability. Same way, carbon tetrachloride, carbon which has 4 valence electrons, they are being shared with 4 chlorine atoms. So each one's octet is complete. As you can see, the electrons are encircled to show you that around each atom there is an octet. Now, what steps you should follow for any molecule or complex ion for which you have to make the Lewis dot structure? You just count the total number of valence electrons. For example, if I take this, how many total valence electrons are there? Each hydrogen has 1. There are 2 hydrogens, so it becomes 2. Plus oxygen has 6 valence electrons, so it becomes 8. Now you have total 8 electrons. Okay, be careful that only the valence electrons are to be counted. So you have these 8 electrons, and they are to be arranged around the atoms in such a manner that octet, and in case of hydrogen, duplet of each hydrogen is complete. So we will start with a single bond because hydrogen can never make a double bond. So you show these two electrons here and these two electrons here. So this shows that there is a single bond between oxygen and each hydrogen. Now out of 8 electrons I have used 4 electrons. So remaining 4 I will be arranging on oxygen because hydrogen is already having complete duplet. So this is the Lewis dot structure. I hope it's clear. Let me make it again slightly bigger, keeping the atoms at more distance from each other. How many electrons you have in total? 8. So start with a single bond. For H and O, the bond between hydrogen and any other atom, you don't have to worry. You have to show only the single bond because hydrogen can make only single bond. So these are the 2 electrons between them, and these are the 2 electrons between them which are making a single bond. 4 electrons I have used, remaining 4, 1, because you generally show them in pair, 2, 3, 4. This is the Lewis dot structure of water molecule. Same way for carbon tetrachloride, count the total number of valence electrons, 4 in carbon and 7 in each chlorine. So 7 fours are 28. You have 32 electrons in total, and they are to be arranged around all of them in such a manner that octet of each one is complete. So this is the arrangement which is explaining it in the best way, that carbon is making 4 single bonds because carbon can make total 4 bonds. So if all are single, total 4. If it is making a double bond with something, then there have to be 2 more single bonds. And if it is making a triple bond with something, then there has to be 1 more single bond that makes total 4. Now in this case, it is getting bonded to 4 chlorines. So that is obvious that everywhere it will be a single bond. So this is the perfect structure of carbon tetrachloride, CCl4. And there was a drawback that Lewis dot structures do not explain the shape and geometry of the molecules. They just concentrate on completing the octet and explaining the stability in that manner. Now, suppose you have carbon dioxide, right? Carbon dioxide, let us calculate the total number of valence electrons. Carbon has 4, each oxygen has 6. So that makes it total 12, 6 into 2. Now 12 plus 4 is 16 electrons that we have, and we have to arrange these 16 electrons around the central carbon in such a manner that the octet of carbon and both the oxygens is complete. So let us start with a single bond on both the sides. Okay. And we remember that carbon always makes total 4 bonds. So if I'm starting with a single bond and then out of 16, 4 are used here. 4 electrons I have used. 1, 2, 3 and 4. So let me complete the octet of this oxygen first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there are already 2 here. 8. 8 plus these 2, 10. 6 electrons are still there. If I arrange them here, this is perfect. Why? Because I have completed the octet of each oxygen. But what about carbon? Carbon is having only 2 single bonds around it. It has only 4 electrons around it. So this structure can never be stable. Let us start with double bond on one side. This is just to explain it to you. You don't have to make it like this for every molecule. You just have to think the best way in which the octet of each one is complete and make one structure only. I am making more to give you all the options. So out of 16, I am making double bond here and I am making a single bond here. So 6 I have used. Now 4 are already there. 5, 6, 7, 8. Around this oxygen, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Its octet is complete. Same way 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Its octet is also complete. I have used all the 16 electrons. But see carbon again. Carbon has only 6 electrons around it. Now, what other option we have? We have only 16 electrons. So this structure is wrong. It's not giving stability to carbon. This is also wrong. It's not giving stability. Let's try the next option. I can see two options here. In book only one is given, that you show double bonds on both the sides, which is perfectly fine. But what if I show a triple bond on one side and a single bond on the other side? Let us see. Single bond. I hope you can see these two electrons here. And here you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One more oxygen here. 6 and 2 more I am giving here. It makes it 8. And this side you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll just make it properly. Yes. Let us see now how many electrons have we used. We have used total 16 electrons which were available, and I'll just encircle to show you that octet of each atom is complete, including carbon. Try to do it yourself by that time. And whenever, even if you are watching my videos, you should have your register and pen with you and keep writing. Stop the video wherever you want and keep writing. Then if you are confused anywhere, you can play the slide again. Okay, so here you can see 6, 7, 8 of this oxygen. Again for carbon you have 8 electrons around it, and for this oxygen also you have 8 electrons around it. So this is also one of the possibilities, that I show triple bond on any one side and I show single bond on the other side. And the other possibility is this, as shown here, with double bond on both the sides. So these are the two possible structures. This is also correct and this is also correct. The next is C2H4 molecule. We call this alkene. It has a double bond. This alkene is ethene, right? So ethene molecule, if ethene molecule is making bond, just remember, in case of such compounds, organic compounds including carbon always, that carbon should have total 4 bonds. So if I make the structure, carbon is having a double bond here and then making 2 single bonds with hydrogen, so total 4. Similarly for this carbon also total 4. And then each carbon should have octet complete, and I told you hydrogens can never make anything else but single bond. So show carbons, count the total number of valence electrons first. Each carbon has 4, so there are 2 carbons, I am writing 8, plus each hydrogen has 1, so there are 4 hydrogens, I am writing 4. Total is 12. I have 12 electrons and I will be arranging them around the central atoms in such a manner that octet of each carbon is complete and duplet of each hydrogen is complete. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I am putting 2 hydrogens here. You can see both hydrogens have duplet, 2 electrons. So 1s2 is complete by sharing. Same way, 2 hydrogens here. Perfect, right? Now I have used 8 electrons. How many are left? Only 4. So 4 I will show here in between 2 carbons. That makes a double bond. Right. Now you can see the octet of each and every carbon is complete and the duplet of each hydrogen is complete. This carbon has 8 electrons around it. This carbon also has 8 electrons around it, and hydrogens have duplet complete. This is the Lewis dot structure for ethene. You don't have to encircle them. Here we are doing it, in the book it is done so that you understand it better. You just have to draw the simple Lewis dot structure when it is asked. Do not show the structure like this also. Don't show the triple bond. This is for explanation. You can show it simply like nitrogen having 3 bonds with the other nitrogen. So total were how many electrons in N2? How many valence electrons? 10. Out of these 10 electrons, 6 are used here in making a triple bond. This. So remaining 4 are placed here. This is the Lewis dot structure. Okay, as shown here. No need to show the circles, the boundaries. That is just to tell you with confirmation that the octet is complete. And this is C2H2, ethyne, alkyne. This is having a triple bond because hydrogen can make a single bond only. So if I take 2 carbons and I know the total number of electrons in this, each carbon has 4 valence electrons, so 8, and each hydrogen has 1. 8 plus 2 becomes 10, right? So hydrogens can make only a single bond. Other hydrogen on this side, hydrogen can never be in the middle of 2 atoms. 4 electrons I have used. The remaining 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 I will place here between them. So this is the Lewis dot structure for ethyne. Let us try a few more Lewis dot structures. H2 and O2 are very simple. You can make them. Let us see how ozone is to be made. For ozone, the total number of valence electrons are 18. 6 for each oxygen, and there are 3 oxygens. Right. Now you have to arrange these electrons around these atoms in such a manner that octet of each oxygen is complete. So you try with the single bond on both the sides first, and you will see that the octet of central atom is not getting completed. So next would be, as I am doing now, you try with double bond on one side and single bond on the other side. I have used 6 electrons till now out of 18. Let us complete the octet of this oxygen. 4 are already there. 5, 6, 7, 8. And for the other terminal oxygen, 2 are already there. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now I have used 16 electrons. 2 electrons are still left out of 18. So the terminal oxygens are already having complete octet. So we have to put those 2 electrons on the central oxygen. And now the octet of each oxygen is complete, as you can see here. And it's not necessary to make the structure in bent form like this, though it is bent structure. But Lewis did not explain anything about the shape and geometry of the molecules. So it is acceptable like this also in Lewis dot structure, and like this also. About the shape and geometry, we will discuss when we discuss valence shell electron pair repulsion theory. Same way you can try for NF3, NH3, and carbonate. Carbonate is a complex ion. Why am I calling it a complex ion? Because it has a charge, so it is ion. Negative or positive charges, if they are present, they are ions. And complex because it has more than one type of atoms in it. So you have to again count the total number of valence electrons. Carbon has 4. Each oxygen has 6. So total 18 for 3 oxygens. And 2 negative means 2 extra electrons are there. CO3 has taken 2 more electrons from some other entity. So I have to add these 2 electrons, which makes it total 24 electrons, which I have to arrange around the carbon and oxygens in such a manner that octet of each atom is complete. So you can see one oxygen is having a double bond with carbon. The other 2 oxygens are having single bond with carbon. That is the proper Lewis dot structure, including the 2 extra electrons. And that's why we are showing these 2 negative charges outside the bracket, because here we have not yet specified on which atom the negative charge is placed or localized. That we will come to know when we calculate formal charge, which is the topic we are going to discuss soon in this chapter. Same way you can try for HNO3, or if you simply remove this H from here as H plus, it becomes NO3 minus, nitrate ion. So same way, calculate the total number of electrons, valence electrons of nitrogen and 3 oxygens, and add 1 electron to it. And if you're drawing it for HNO3, then simply electron for hydrogen 1, for nitrogen valence electrons 5, for each oxygen valence electron 6. So 6 into 3, 18. Just add them and try. You will get this structure. One more I would like to tell you here, which is having a positive charge, complex ion with a positive charge. This is NH4 plus. I'll count the total number of valence electrons. For nitrogen, it's 5. For each hydrogen, it's 1. So there are 4 hydrogens. So it becomes 5 plus 4. And now positive charge means 1 electron is lost. So I will write minus 1. Be very careful. Where you have negative charge, you have to add those many electrons. And positive charge means less electrons. So that whatever is the charge, it is plus 1 here. I'll subtract 1 from the valence electrons. So it makes it total 8. Now nitrogen in the center and 4 hydrogens around it. You have 8 electrons. You have to complete the octet of each electron. The octet of each atom. But here hydrogen is there. So duplet of hydrogen I would say. And show the electrons. 1, 2. It has to be a single bond only. You know the reason now. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 electrons we have used. It's complete. And now just put positive charge here outside. Now just by looking at these Lewis dot structures, actually you can predict whether the atom, any atom for that matter in the structure, will be having a charge on it or not. Let us see NH4 carefully. You can see each hydrogen seems to have 1 electron of its own, the other is coming from nitrogen. But if you see nitrogen carefully, nitrogen has its own share of 4 electrons only, but we know that nitrogen has 5 valence electrons. So nitrogen has 1 electron less. That's why when I do the calculation of formal charge later using the formula, the positive charge should come on nitrogen. This positive charge belongs to nitrogen, that means. Let us see ozone. It's in front of us. See what is the share of the total electrons which belong to this oxygen. You can see from the double bond 2 electrons and 2 lone pairs, 6 electrons. Perfect, which is expected. See the central one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 electron is less here. So when I calculate, it should get a plus 1 charge. And the ozone molecule as a whole is neutral. So if I have got a plus 1 somewhere, I will definitely get a minus 1 somewhere. So only 1 oxygen is left. Let us see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 1 from here 7. It should have 6 electrons of its own, but it is showing 7 electrons around it in the Lewis dot structure. That means when I do the calculation, there has to be minus 1 here. So this was just to tell you that by looking at the Lewis dot, you can actually predict which atom is going to have charge. Let's try for carbonate from here. I hope it will be easy for you now. Let me remove this tick from here. Let us see now. Where should these two negative charges go? Let us see the carbon first. Carbon has 1, 2 and 1 from here. That's why I'm saying always show the 2 electrons placed side by side horizontally, as I have done in all the structures. When you draw it, you will see carbon has 4 electrons around it. So that means it's not having any charge. But interestingly, the oxygen, two oxygens which are having single bond. They have 7 electrons around them. This oxygen has 6 shared. Okay, which is expected. So the oxygens which are attached with a single bond, they will get -1, and -1 plus -1 makes it -2. This is the total charge. Now this is solved example. You have to draw the Lewis dot structure of CO. You can have a look at the explanation later. I'm explaining it here for you the way we have done it. We have been doing it. Carbon and oxygen, the total number of valence electrons in carbon 4 and in oxygen you have 6, total 10. Let us arrange them between these two atoms in such a manner that octet of each one is complete. So I have carbon, I have oxygen. So I'll start with a single bond. Then you will see it's not completing the octet of each one. Then try with a double bond. It's not going to help you because you will see it's not giving stability. Then you reach triple bond. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 electrons between them, and each bond has 2 electrons, so it is a triple bond. I have used 6 electrons. 7, 8, 9, 10. So the octet is complete for each one of them. So this is the Lewis dot structure of carbon monoxide. Can we predict the charges from here? We have not yet done the formula, discussed the formula of formal charge calculation. But from here we can predict. See, out of these 6, 3 belong to carbon if it is sharing. Total 5 electrons around carbon and total 5 electrons around oxygen. But we know that oxygen has 6 valence electrons, so 1 is less, it becomes +1 here. And carbon has 1 extra, so it becomes -1 here. That's why the whole molecule is neutral. One more thing you can notice from here, carbon and oxygen, if you compare, oxygen is more electronegative, but still here in the structure, oxygen is getting a positive charge. You will understand all this later when you discuss another type of bond, which is coordinate bond. I'm giving you an idea here. If I draw the structure with a double bond, right? So 4 electrons in the middle, 5, 6, and then you have 7, 8, 9, 10. And the octet of carbon is not yet complete. So what happens? Oxygen offers its lone pair and makes coordinate bond. In coordinate bond, it is covalent bond only, which is formed by sharing. But the special thing about it is that both the electrons which are being shared come from one atom only. It's not like carbon is giving one and oxygen is giving one. So that's how you get a triple bond, and because oxygen is offering its electron pair, that's why it gets a positive charge. Again, these things were not explained by Lewis. I'm just giving you some extra knowledge here because you'll be using it later. Whenever you have to draw Lewis dot structure, just draw the structure based on the total number of valence electrons. Another question. Lewis dot structure of nitrite, that is NO2 with 1 negative charge. Count the total number of electrons. 18 would be there. Arrange them in the same manner as I have told you, and you will be able to get a Lewis dot structure where on one side you have a double bond, on the other side you have a single bond. And one more thing, double bond can be shown on the left hand side or right hand side. I mean to say with this oxygen or with this oxygen. So these structures, they are called resonating structures also. That's another concept which we will definitely be discussing in this chapter. This is how you find, connection between different subtopics, which makes it even more interesting. So this is the structure, and I hope now you can try just from the structure that whether nitrogen will be having this negative charge on it, which is shown outside the bracket, or any one of the oxygens. So please try that. Now here is the next subtopic, formal charge calculation, which is quite interesting. Formal charge. I gave you some idea. Formal charge on an atom in a Lewis dot structure can be calculated by the formula. Total number of valence electrons. Please write down the formula, then move to the next slide. Total number of valence electrons in the free atom generally how many valence electrons are there. Then you have total number of non-bonding electrons, we call them lone pairs, and half of number of bonding or shared electron. Why? Because if carbon is sharing, suppose here if I write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? If carbon is sharing, total 6 electrons are there which are being shared. So if I divide it by 2, only half of it will come for carbon as its share. So that's why half of bonded electrons. Let us draw the structure of CO again here and calculate formal charge. Formal charge is to be calculated on each atom. I'm first calculating it on carbon by using the formula. The formula says valence electrons, carbon has 4 valence electrons generally, minus number of electrons which are not taking part in bonding, lone pair. I can see one lone pair here. That means 2 electrons, minus half of how many? 6. Because these 6 electrons are being shared. So each atom has only half of it as its own share. So it becomes 4 minus 2 minus 3. That is minus 1. I hope it's clear. Now oxygen. Let us calculate it here. Formal charge on oxygen. Valence electrons 6 minus how many electrons are not taking part in bonding? I can see 2 here. So I will write 6 minus 2 minus half of what? Again total 6 because 6 are being shared in total. So it becomes 6 minus 2 minus 3. I hope you got it, and it becomes plus 1. There is a minus 1, there is a plus 1. That's why the whole molecule CO is neutral. Again, ozone is being explained here. It's an example from your book NCERT. So draw the Lewis dot structure. Instead of showing these lines here, show dots and then apply the formula. Like if I draw it like this, oxygen, one more oxygen. You can draw it in a straight line also. That's not a problem here. As far as Lewis dot is concerned, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have total 18 electrons. Valence electrons of 3 oxygens, which can be arranged around the atoms in such a manner that octet of each one is complete. So out of 18, I have used 6. Then 7, 8, 9, 10. This terminal oxygen has complete octet now. Let us complete the octet of this terminal oxygen. I have drawn it earlier also, but I want you to get a clear picture that how are they related to each other. I am drawing it again. And it's a suggestion that whenever you study, doesn't matter how many times the same structure is coming, please draw it every time and see how your concepts become very clear. So it becomes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? Octet is completed. I have completed the octet of both the terminal oxygens. How many electrons I have used? 16. How many we had? 18. Still 2 electrons are there, so we can put them here. And now you will see the octet of terminal oxygens is complete. This is one terminal, extreme I mean to say. This is another terminal, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. For the central also we have completed. This is the structure. Now just by looking at the structure, I'll just make it clear from here. Removing all this. Yeah. Let us look at the electrons now. By looking at the electrons, we can make out that this oxygen has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is expected. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of its own. This is less than 6, it should be 6. And here it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is extra. When I do the calculation, this should get minus 1 charge, which is bonded with a single bond with the central one. Central one should get a positive charge. and this should get a 0 charge. Let us see. The central atom marked 1 here in the picture. This one. Number of valence electrons 6 in oxygen. How many are not taking part? 2 electrons I can see on the central atom which are not bonded, and minus half of 6. 4 on this side and 2 on this side. So it becomes plus 1. The end oxygen atom marked 2. This one. Extreme. So this is the terminal oxygen, one of them. 6 valence electrons, minus 4 are not taking part in bonding, minus half of 4 because it has only a double bond here. That's why half of 4. So it becomes 0. And the other end, mark 3, other terminal oxygen, it has 6 valence electrons. Formula we are applying. Minus, how many electrons are not bonded? I can see 3 lone pairs. That makes it 6 electrons. Minus half of 2 because there is only a single bond. It becomes minus 1. Easy and simple to calculate now. Now, octet rule we have been discussing earlier also, that everything which has to attain stability should share electrons with some other entity, or it can go for transfer of electrons. And then the idea is to complete the octet because that gives extra stability. Now, octet rule is obviously useful, but it's been observed that in many cases the molecules they do exist, but the octet is not complete, or the octet is expanded octet. That means more than 8 electrons around the central atom. So here are a few exceptions, limitations to this. For example, if you take lithium chloride and it makes a bond with, lithium makes a bond with chlorine. So chlorine has 1, 2, 3, 4, remove the stick from here, 5 and 6, right? And it is the 7th electron of this, and this electron, one of them has come from lithium. They are sharing it. So you can see that for lithium the octet is not complete. Here you can see for beryllium the hydrogen duplet is complete. For beryllium the octet is incomplete, and for boron also the octet is incomplete. For chlorines, obviously if you show all the electrons for every chlorine, the octet is being completed. Now this is first type of examples that we are discussing under limitations, that they have incomplete octet. Yes. The next is odd electron molecules. They also exist. Odd electron means when you count the total number of valence electrons of these atoms which are in the molecule, the total should come out to be an odd number. And whenever you arrange the electrons around this atoms, central or other atoms, it has to be a bond pair or lone pair. It is always a pair. So whenever you have a single electron left like in NO, or you have a single electron like in NO2, then it has to be odd electron molecule. In nitrogen, you have 5 valence electrons of nitrogen and 6 each from oxygen. So it becomes 17. In NO, you have 5 plus 6. So it becomes 11. Both are odd electron. That's why they are not that stable. They dimerize. That means two molecules will join together to give it stability. And the expanded octet, all these examples where you can see the central atom is making 5 bonds, 6 bonds, 6 bonds, and in every bond you have 2 electrons. So 5 into 2 is 10 electrons around the central atom, and 6 bonds means 12 electrons around the central atom. And we know that these molecules, they do exist. That means they are also violating the octet rule. Still they exist, and this is called expanded octet. Let's discuss something more about ionic or electrovalent bond. Now we know that if transfer of electrons is taking place in the formation of bond, we call it ionic or electrovalent bond. So NaCl is a very common example. You must have seen such type of structure in many books. Rock salt structure. This is called a lattice. Lattice means a 3D, three-dimensional ordered arrangement. There is a particular order which is being followed by different ions, and they get arranged in a perfect arrangement where you can further predict where would the next Na plus or Cl minus will come. And once you see the structure, and you take out one portion from it, that is called a unit cell. Unit means single. It's like a wall. If you consider bricks of exactly same size and shape are being used in a wall, so one brick will be called unit cell, which keeps on repeating. You can repeat in all the three dimensions and you can make a big 3D structure. It's like that. So the single unit cell, which is visible here, it's moving now. It is showing you this cube with 8 corners. Every cube has 8 corners and there are 12 edges and there are 6 faces. So everywhere, depending upon what type of ionic compound it is, they have different arrangement on this cube. So this is the lattice and this is the unit cell which keeps on repeating. It's not mentioned here, but just for your knowledge, I am telling you it's called unit cell. Now the lattice, if you have to make a lattice, you have to decide the quantity first. Suppose the lattice is being made of 1 mole of NaCl. So if 1 mole of NaCl you are considering, then to separate 1 mole of this ionic compound NaCl we are considering here into its gaseous constituent ions, means if one NaCl lattice which has the quantity 1 mole in it, if I supply energy and every Na plus and Cl minus separates and then finally I get discrete gaseous ions which do not have any bond with anything. So that amount of energy is called lattice enthalpy. It's here. For NaCl, for every ion, for every lattice of ionic compounds, it is different quantity and fixed quantity. For NaCl, it is 788 kilojoules per mole. That means if you want to separate 1 mole of solid NaCl into 1 mole of Na plus ions in gaseous form and 1 mole of chloride ion in the gaseous form, then you have to supply 788 kilojoules of energy for 1 mole. Or you can put it this way also, that if 1 mole of Na plus ions and 1 mole of Cl minus ions in the gaseous form, when they combine and give rise to a lattice, then 788 kilojoules of energy is released per mole. There are some bond parameters. Bond length. Bond length is defined as the equilibrium distance between the nuclei. Equilibrium distance means if two atoms are getting bonded, then we know that their nuclei, they repel each other because they are positively charged. Their electrons, they repel each other because all the electrons are negatively charged, and electrons are continuously moving. So at some point, the positive charged nucleus of one atom may attract the electron of the other atom. Here is the attraction. And same way, the positively charged nucleus of this atom will attract the electrons of this atom. Opposite charges attract. So wherever these repulsive and attractive forces are balanced, that is called equilibrium distance. So wherever they are balanced, so the distance between two bonded atoms, the nuclei of two bonded atoms is called bond length. And more is the bond length, weaker is the bond. It's easy to break. Shorter is the bond, smaller is the bond length, or shorter is the bond, then more strong is the bond. There is more strength to the bond, so it's difficult to break. Here, van der Waals radii for chlorine molecule is being discussed, covalent and van der Waals radii. The inner circle, they correspond to the size of the chlorine atom. And here, if you discuss that this is one chlorine atom, this is the other chlorine atom. So these two, when they, the Cl2, when they are bonded to each other, so distance from its nuclei to the other nuclei, this is called covalent radii. But if two Cl2 molecules come opposite to each other, because in a sample you will be having many molecules of a particular type. So this is one Cl2 molecule and this is the other Cl2 molecule. So when they come in front of each other, in the vicinity of each other, then you can see here also there is distance being measured between the nucleus of this and nucleus of this, which belong to different molecules. But how are they together? Because there is a van der Waals force of attraction which is everywhere. So this distance is called van der Waals radii, and the distance between the nuclei of the atoms which are actually bonded by a covalent bond is called covalent radii. Bond angle. For bond angle, we should have at least two bonds to explain it. So here you can see an example where two bonds are there. Water molecule is being discussed. This is the 3D structure, actually taking the ball and stick model. And here it has been shown that this is in angstrom. This is the bond length of OH bond. Same here and here. And this is bond angle, the angle between two bonds. You will understand why the angle is having this particular value when we discuss the VSEPR theory, and there we can actually explain that what is the shape, what is the geometry, and what will be the bond angle. If you take another example here, suppose I take the example of beryllium chloride. So Be in the center, and beryllium has only two valence electrons. So it is making a bond with one chlorine by sharing, and another bond with the other chlorine, BeCl2. So here the central atom is having two bonds, and there has to be maximum possible distance between the bonds. So on beryllium, you do not have any lone pair. So two bond pairs can be at maximum distance when I am keeping them at 180 degree. So it is linear. And the bond angle is 180. This will be very clear to you when we once start VSEPR theory. So let's move on. Bond enthalpy. Enthalpy term is related to energy. So the amount of energy required to break bonds present in 1 mole of a particular substance, or the amount of energy released when 1 mole of that substance is made from its constituent atoms or ions, that is bond enthalpy. Suppose we are talking about hydrogen molecule, hydrogen gas. If I have 1 mole of hydrogen gas, whatever amount of energy which is specified here, 435.8 kilojoules for 1 mole. It has to be per mole always. So whatever amount of energy I have to supply to separate molecules of hydrogen into discrete hydrogen atoms, that is called bond enthalpy. And here small a is also written in the subscript. It means atomization. Atomization means you are separating a molecule into its discrete constituent atoms. So here the bond enthalpy and enthalpy of atomization are same. Similarly, the bond enthalpy of oxygen molecule, we have a double bond. We have to supply more energy to break the double bond, and even more energy to break a triple bond, because with the increase in number of bonds between two atoms, the strength of the bond keeps on increasing, obviously. So it's important to note that larger the bond dissociation enthalpy, if I have to supply more energy to break the bonds of any molecule, then it has to have very strong bond, right? And for these were the examples of homonuclear. Now heteronuclear, like HCl. I hope you remember the meaning of heteronuclear, when two different atoms are getting bonded, like H and Cl. So if I have to break the bonds, I have to supply this much of energy. So again, I can call it bond enthalpy or atomization enthalpy. Here are a few polyatomic molecules. You can take H2O or any other molecule which has more than two atoms in it. And you will notice that if I take the example of water, it's a stepwise process. It's not that at one go both the O and H bonds are breaking. It will break systematically. First one bond will break. Suppose I show you here. This bond is breaking. I will be getting HO, which is left, and I will be getting plus one more hydrogen which has broken the bond with oxygen because we supplied energy. And next step would be this HO which is formed here. This is now going to again break the bond between H and O, and it will be giving you hydrogen and oxygen atoms. If you add these two steps together, simple reaction that I can show here to explain it would be two H atoms plus one oxygen atom. This is the gist of it. But you can see it is taking place in different steps. Two steps. Now the amount of energy required here in the first step to break OH bond and the amount of energy required in the second step to break this OH bond, they have to be different, because in the first one I'm starting from a stable molecule H2O, but in the second step I'm starting with something which is already unstable. So HO and H2O, they will use different energies to break the bond. But in both the cases, it is oxygen and hydrogen bond. And if you see the bond length and all different aspects which are given here, like bond type is OH here. See the table. And the bond length is 96. So if the bond length of OH is same, the bond enthalpy should also be same. But we are saying here in two steps it's different. And same way, the bond length in some common molecules is given here. Like in H2, the bond length is 74. In F2, it is 144. And in HBr, it has to be obviously different, 141. So it depends with what the atom is making a bond. And let's go back to this point that why for both the OH bonds, the length is same. Length same means strength is same, and if there is same strength, I should supply exactly same amount of energy to break them. Let us see how to explain this. You will observe that H2O, when it is breaking, first step which I wrote requires more energy, though H and O bond is only breaking in both the cases. In the second step, it's requiring lesser energy because already the OH is something which is unstable. It is at higher energy level, so it's easy to break it. Now the difference here in the values is suggesting that if the OH bond strength and length are same, you are getting the same value everywhere, same amount of energy should be there. And if you get the table in which OH bond enthalpy is also explained, also given the value, you will find that it is also exactly same. They will not specify in what the OH bond length is, this for one bond and this for the other bond. Why? Because there is something called average bond enthalpy. When you have same bond more than once, you have to add the values and divide it by the number of steps. So you will get the average bond enthalpy. Bond order, the next bond parameter. In Lewis' description of covalent bond, bond order is given by the number of bonds between two atoms. That means if any molecule is having a single bond like H and H given here, so its bond order will be 1. We will actually calculate it when we do molecular orbital theory. And here oxygen and oxygen, they have a double bond with each other. So here the bond order should be 2. Nitrogen makes a triple bond with the other nitrogen, so bond order should be 3. Triple bond. And it is very interesting to note that isoelectronics molecules, isoelectronic species, and they may be molecules, they may be ions, they have exactly same bond order. That means if you calculate the bond order of F2 and O22 minus, they have bond order of 1 when you do the calculation. And this will be, I am telling you once again, it will be explained in molecular orbital theory. But they are isoelectronic. They have exactly same number of electrons, so bond order has to be exactly same. N2, CO and NO plus, they all have a triple bond in them. So their bond order has to be 3, and these 3, they are isoelectronic. Nitrogen has how many total electrons in it? 7 plus 7, 14. Carbon monoxide has 8 plus 6, 14. Same way NO plus also has 14 electrons in it. So that is how we relate bond order with the isoelectronic species. And A general correlation which is useful for understanding the stabilities of molecules is that with the increase in bond order, bond enthalpy increases and bond length decreases. Why should that be? If I move from bond order 1, that is a single bond, to a double bond, bond order 2, and a triple bond, bond order 3, then obviously the single bond would be longer. In double bond, the length decreases, and in triple bond, we have to show it properly. And in triple bond, the bond length will be even lesser than the double bond. This is just a depiction, just to compare. So if the bond length is decreasing, bond strength is increasing from here to here, then obviously the bond enthalpy, the amount of energy required to break the bonds, will definitely increase. Now we have resonating structures or resonance structures in front of us. What is a resonating structure? If you have double bond or triple bond in some molecule, suppose I take the example of ozone here, and the same concept will be coming in organic chemistry also, quite an interesting concept, but this is hypothetical. You cannot expect these structures to exist independently. This is just an explanation that they keep on converting into each other. And why should we do something which is hypothetical? Because it is explaining the anomaly in the bond length measurement. What happens when you say that there is a single bond and there is a double bond? We just noticed in the previous slides that double bond has shorter bond length than the single. But when they measure it for such molecules, they found that it is exactly same, somewhere between the single and double, like 1.5 kinds. It should be 121 picometers for a double bond, 148 picometers for a single bond. But for both the OO bonds, it has been found to be 128 picometers. So this is explained by the fact that it is not necessary that oxygen will make, if I mark them 1, 2 and 3 oxygens. It's not necessary that the first, the oxygen in the middle, which is marked as number 1, will always make a single bond with 2 and double bond with the third oxygen. It can be this way also. It can make a double bond with the second oxygen if I number it, and third oxygen can have a single bond. So this electron density which is there, it keeps on shifting. Double bond can shift from here to here and vice versa. That's why you have a double-headed arrow. This shows that these two forms are interconvertible. So these are called resonance structures or resonating structures. Same way you have it for carbon. You just have to draw the Lewis dot structure first. And then you see there is a double bond here and two single bonds. So I can shift the double bond here also. I can shift the double bond here also. But we have to keep it in mind that if the double bond is shifted, the oxygen which is having 4 electrons, and here the oxygen is having 7 electrons around it and negative charge, that should also be shifted. What I mean to say, I cannot just shift the double bond here and keep the negative charge and 6 electrons as lone pairs around this oxygen. That will not be a stable structure. So be careful when you are just shifting the double bond from one between two atoms to the other side. Be careful about the electrons and charge also, that is also to be shifted. So here you have these three resonating structures possible. Now explain the structure of CO2 molecule, resonating structure I am discussing. You can have this structure. Now here on both the sides you have a double bond, so it is not going to explain here. But yes, if I shift one of the bonds this side, suppose, what will I get? I'll get C with a triple bond on one side and a single bond on the other side. Now it's not necessary that the triple bond will be on the right hand side only. It can be this side also. And single bond this side. So these are the three possible structures, resonating structures, and don't forget to put a double-headed arrow between two structures, which shows that they keep on converting into each other. So resonance, what happens, it stabilizes the molecule as the energy of resonance hybrid. What is a hybrid? In the hybrid, we just write that the three structures or whatever two structures, they are equivalent to a structure in which I can show that there is single bond on both the sides obviously, but triple bond can be here also, triple bond can be this side also, or it may be, when you calculate, it will be the double bond on both the side. The length of bond will not be very short on one side if there is a triple bond, and longer than that on the other side, it will be exactly same. So this is in a way explaining that these two, first two, if I take a hybrid of them, it will look like this. In the previous slide, you must have noticed that ozone was also having the third structure where oxygen was shown with two single bonds. And because we know that the double bond can be on any side, so they were showing dotted lines. This is also resonance hybrid or ozone. So the resonance hybrid has less energy than any of these canonical forms. Another term. Resonating structures are also called canonical structures. So any one of the structures, if you compare with the hybrid, hybrid is more stable because here you are explaining the proper bonds. I mean the bonds in the sense that why the bond length is coming out to be equal. So that's a hybrid. And resonance averages the bond characteristic as a whole, because I cannot say that there has to be single on one side and triple on the other side. It will be somewhere between, that is a double bond. I cannot say that there has to be a single on one and double on the other. It will be somewhere between them, one and a half kinds. So it is basically averaging the bond characteristics, and that is how it is explaining the stability. Another interesting subtopic, polarity of bonds. Polar term is related to the charge separation. So if there is polarity, there is charge separation. That means you have such molecules where two different atoms are getting bonded. In case of H2 and O2, there is no polarity. Why? Because exactly same kind of atoms are getting bonded and they have same electron negativity. So the electron pair will be exactly in the middle of the two atoms. So they are called non-polar covalent bonds. And HF is an example of heteronuclear molecule. Different atoms are getting bonded. So here H and F, there will be charge separation, because if H is sharing one electron and F is also sharing one electron, but F has more power to attract the electron pair. So electron pair will be shifted towards fluorine. This is giving rise to charge separation, which we show with delta negative here, and we show with delta positive here, because electron pair is shifted away from it, and in the pair one electron belongs to hydrogen also. So because its share is being shifted towards the other atom, which is more powerful in terms of electron negativity, that's why we get polarity, poles, negative and positive. So this is polar covalent bond. So as a result of polarization, the molecule possesses the dipole moment. Dipole moment is measurement which is used to express the polarity in a molecule. Dipole moment mathematically can be calculated by taking the product of charge and distance of separation between the charges. The symbol of dipole moment is mu, and its units are debye, capital T. The conversion factor, because charge will be in coulombs and distance of separation will be a quantity, a measurement related to length, distance. But if you have to explain this conversion factor, then you take it in meters. So 1 debye is 3.33564 10 to the power minus 30 coulomb meter. It is not centimeter. It is coulomb for charge and meter for distance. This is how you express the extent of polarization in a particular molecule. HF, I just gave you the example. It's same thing. The head of the arrow will be towards the more electronegative atom and the tail will be towards the less electronegative, and then you put a line here vertically which shows that there will be a delta positive charge. Can you explain it? This arrow symbolizes the direction of shift of the electron density in the molecule, which is responsible for giving rise to polarity. Some more examples for you. Water. Water has bent shape. This we are telling you because we have not discussed yet the VSEPR theory. So if it is bent, oxygen is more electronegative, so dipole moment of this bond will be in this direction. Dipole moment of this bond will be in this direction. And vectors, when you solve them on the basis of the angle which is there, then you will find the resultant will come out to be in this direction. And this proves, because the value of dipole moment for water is calculated to be this much. So this proves that water is not linear. Had it been linear like this, both the dipole moments of both OH bonds would have been in opposite directions, and they would have been equal also. So there should have been a total cancellation and dipole moment should be 0. But it's not 0 here, which proves that it is bent shape. Dipole moment in case of beryllium fluoride or beryllium chloride or beryllium hydride, you will get a linear structure. So they are equal and opposite. So in spite of having two polar bonds, it is non-polar molecule. Dipole moment is 0. Now what do you think about BCl3? What should be its dipole? It has three polar bonds. One, because the Cl is more electronegative, my arrows are having their heads towards Cl. So these two Cl, BCl bonds, they have the resultant which is equal and opposite to the third BCl bond dipole moment. So again here the dipole moment would be 0. Let us quickly discuss ammonia and NF3. Now, if there is a lone pair, in both the cases, nitrogen has lone pair on it, and lone pair is available for bonding. So it is always shown the arrow moving away from the atom on which lone pair is available. And if you see these three NH bonds, they are pointing in the direction of nitrogen. Why? Because nitrogen is more electronegative. So this is the resultant of these three NH bonds. And this is for dipole, if you explain in terms of this lone pair. So these two arrows, because they are pointing in the same direction, they add up. The values are adding up to some extent. And if I compare it with NF3, in NF3, this will be for the lone pair away from nitrogen. And these three are pointing away from nitrogen in the opposite direction. So this is the resultant of these three. Now I am not saying that this, which is for lone pair, and this, which is the resultant of three NF bonds, they are equal. But they are in opposite direction. So some cancellation would be there. That's why the dipole moment of ammonia, value of mu for ammonia is greater than NF3. And now we come to the end of this presentation. And here is a very, very important concept that is based on a rule called Fajan's rule. That was discussed by Fajan. So the partial, according to the rule, every molecule has some partial ionic character even if the molecule is covalent, and every ionic bond has some partial covalent character in it. How to decide the extent of ionic or covalent character? The smaller the size of the cation, the larger the size of an ion, the greater the covalent character. Why should that be? Because the small size of cation, like lithium, if you take and you compare lithium, I'll keep the anion same here, only then we can compare LiCl, and you have NaCl. Right? So if lithium is there and I compare it with sodium, lithium will be making smaller cation because the size is small. Sodium will be a bigger cation than that. But if the size of atom is small, it's difficult for it to lose the electron. Ionization enthalpy is very high. That's why it is going to share. That's why lithium makes covalent bonds more by sharing. Though it is in the first group, still as you move down, the group, the size of atom increases, the ionization enthalpy decreases. So it's easy to lose the electron. Larger the size of an ion, now you take same cation, Na plus, and compare it with the different anions. Let us take the example of NaBr along with it. So cation is same, but you know that Br is bigger. So if bigger size of atom is there, it's difficult for that atom to take the electron because its nucleus is buried deep inside. Cl can convert to Cl minus quickly as compared to Br because it is bigger in size. That's why the covalent character is more if the anion is bigger. The greater the charge on the cation, the greater the covalent character. If I compare NaCl with MgCl2 or let us take AlCl3, then obviously in AlCl3 the charge on Al is 3 plus, in Na it is 1 plus. So it is easy to lose 1 electron as compared to losing 2 or 3 electrons. That's why more the charge on cation, more will be the covalency in its character. And whenever any two atoms are coming in vicinity, there is something called polarizing power of the cation. If there is something with a positive charge and some other atom comes in the vicinity, so it will be attracting its electron cloud and polarizing it. Polarizing means we generally show the sphere around the nucleus that this is the atom. If there is already something which is positively charged and it comes in the vicinity of this particular sphere, what will happen? It will offer attraction to the electrons. It will attract them towards itself. As a result, this particular entity will not remain spherical. It will become oval. Positive charge will be this side, and the electron cloud, this is the electron cloud, it is shifting towards this side. Why? Because it is being attracted by Na plus. They have to be very close to each other. So the anions have polarizability and cations have polarizing power. More the attraction, more will be the sharing, more will be the percentage of covalent character in one ionic bond. So that is the gist. One more thing I can see here, that if something is having a noble gas configuration like NS2, NP6, and this is compared with the transition metals which have this configuration, they are D block elements. So transition metals, they are more polarizing than the one with a noble gas configuration, because noble gases already have stable configuration, so they will not be attracting the other electron cloud of some other atom. And alkali and alkaline earth metals, obviously they will be attracting the electron cloud more because they have tendency, they need to attract it because of opposite charge. They already have positive charge on them. That's why. So this building up of charge density between the two nuclei, that gives rise to polarizing power and polarizability. And more is this attraction, more is the cancellation of charge by attracting the electron cloud, more will be the covalent character. That's all about this presentation. Very soon I'll be sharing with you the next presentation. I hope your concepts will be very clear for chemical bonding after going through the presentations. Thank you.